Hey guys, hope you're doing well. Unfortunately, won't see it till the 20th. I'm sure you already know about that already. Uh, Very difficult, obviously, to have discussions, talk about certain perspectives and approaches to psychology when we're not here. So, I want to go over a little bit more of perspectives and approaches in psychology today. Um, Thank you all for who completed the contemporary approaches with the book activity. Today, I want to focus a little bit more on the cognitive approach, talk about Noam Chomsky, who is a famous psychologist in respect to language, who I'll mention more about today. And I'll talk about, review a little bit of the psychoanalysis theory, the psychodynamic view with Freud, and how he believes the unconscious mind, conscious mind, preconscious mind all work together. And I know I mentioned that before. It's kind of a review in a way in that respect, but uh, I want to talk about those two approaches especially, and I want you guys to know that we'll have an assignment here soon with the career paths in psychology, since psychology is an ever expanding field, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in tomorrow's lesson. So expect that for tomorrow's lesson. Okay, you'll see that posted here soon enough, and I'll explain a little bit what I want from you guys, some of the assignment in detail, where you have to create a presentation, and I'd like you to record that presentation, right? I'd like to see your slides. Okay, you do not have to be in the video yourself, but the slides do, right? You can screen share it through Zoom. That's the best way, I think, to record lessons. You can upload it to YouTube. I think that's the best way to upload videos, and you can send me the link. Okay, you can attach it on the assignment when obviously that is due. So I'll get in that a little bit more tomorrow. So today, real quick, since we went over Piaget's developmental stages, let's describe Piaget's developmental stages, give specific examples of each stage. All right, so like normal, pause video, write down your response, and I'm going to go over it. So real quick, Piaget's developmental stages. Okay, I know I went over this yesterday, and how this developmental view in psychology, there's different stages and different ideas of where we grow and where we develop over time. And it first starts off with the sensory motor stage, 0 to 2 years old. So birth to 2 years old. And this is where we are trying to sense the world around us, hence the name sensory motor, right? We are motoring around our fine motor skills, okay, our sensory motor skills. And constantly babies are putting things in their mouth, they're feeling things, they're touching things, and a lot of their toys is based off of that sensation of lights, noise, texture, you name it. Right, so babies constantly roaming around, sensing the world around them by touching, feeling, tasting, touching, smelling, hearing, you name it, right? And that's why they call it the sensory motor stage, well, Piaget, right? And this is a stage where object permanence is not stated yet. So that idea, that example I gave with the teddy bear, you play hide and seek with a baby, right? It's like, oh, and he's back again, right? Babies can't understand that once you, let's say, put the teddy bear away underneath the blanket, they believe it's just disappeared out of thin air. And then when you pull it back out, they're excited, they're all happy. It's like, how did that happen? Where did it go? It just disappeared. So the sensory motor stage, that's an example, a unique example that you can deliver with that stage. The next stage, the pre-operational stage. With the pre-operational stage, this is from 2 years old to 7 years old. Okay, and this is where children start to develop and understand that, you know what, object permanence. If you put that teddy bear underneath the blanket, we know it's just underneath the blanket. It's not like it disappeared. That fascinating factor is just kind of gone. You just can't perform that anymore. And I know I gave that example with my dog. When I pretend to throw a chew toy, he like goes and runs and he looks around for it, and then I squeak it. He's like, "Oh, how did it get back over here?" It's back. So again, 2 to 7. Okay, object permanence, we understand. We can see exactly that that item just does not disappear. Another example from that stage, this pre-operational stage, is we are understanding deductive reasoning, right? Deductive reasoning, and how we can realize that if you turn the switch up, it's going to turn the lights on for the light switch. If you flip it down, it's going to turn it off. Oh, makes sense. We flip it up, turns lights on. Flip it down, turns lights off. Plain simple. Okay, same thing with mathematical equations. We're branching off of that. Egocentrism is big into this stage because we are focused really about ourselves. We can't put ourselves in other people's shoes. So we're just really focused on the world around us, right? Through our eyes. We can't really understand other people's viewpoint, other people's opinions. Whatever it is, our way or the highway, right? Okay, no one else can really have an opinion or perspective of a matter. It's really just seen only through our eyes, and that's the only way we can understand the world around us. Another example of the pre-operational stage is this intuitive age, right? So imaginary friends, big part of people's lives, children's lives at this point, as they are obviously developing and understanding what friendships are. And we develop an imaginary friend that goes along with everything we do. And when we make a mistake, we can blame it on the imaginary friend, right? I know I had one when I was little. What else? What else? We think objects are alive, right? We look at teddy bears and think that, you know what, they can maybe walk around, almost like Toy Story, right? We think these objects obviously have meaning, have a life, when in all reality, they don't. They're inanimate objects. They just don't get up and move around. We're obviously asking why every time. Okay, every question deserves a why. Why does it do this? Why does it do that? Why are you the way you are? Okay, it almost gets annoying after a little bit of time when you spend with a child in this stage. It's like, okay, already, let's put some duct tape over your mouth. Okay, so that is the pre-operational stage, age 2 to 7. And obviously, when you get closer to 7, that next stage, we see these different types of experiences winding down and winding off. We don't view objects as being real. Okay, next stage we know as the concrete operational stage. So the concrete operational stage, this is 7 to 11, right? And this is when we realize, you know what, we can branch out, we can view friendships, build relationships with other people that are similar to us. So building out and finding friends. Okay, I know I gave the example of when we go to a friend's house. Okay, we don't have to like be worried all the time that, I'm branching away from my family, my parents. Okay, this is how my parents do it, and we can understand that maybe other families, maybe other people do things differently. So egocentrism's kind of fading away at this moment. Again, we're building friendships based off of how we are. Okay, so similarities of ourselves. So whether it's sports, whether it's entertainment, you name it. In this stage, in the concrete operational stage, we are somewhat finding relationships based off of love eventually, right? Not so much, okay, not too much. Okay, this is more towards the end of this stage where we're finding loved ones and we're finding romance and emotions based off of obviously going through adolescence and getting into puberty, right? With this stage, also, people tend to pick up on reading skills, mathematical skills, writing skills, okay, you name it. And that intuitive age obviously kind of fades away. No more with imaginary friends as we're growing older, as we're making sense and understanding that, you know what, these objects really can't come to life. Okay, it's just kind of a timeline effect. And then finally, the last stage, a formal operational stage, is really 12 years old to death, where we can critically think, rationally think. We are realizing the differences of science fiction. We don't think superheroes are real, these powers are real. We can kind of build a connection, almost like a barrier between what is fictional and what is real life. Okay, and understanding how we can build relationships even more. We're loved ones, and where we find boyfriends, girlfriends, eventually marriage, right? And how that advances through our lifestyle, okay, in our lives and builds our lifestyle. And like I said, critically thinking, rationally thinking, and we can really try to view the world through different perspectives, okay, and through different approaches to try to answer a question with multiple different viewpoints and multiple different answers that we could find. Research, you name it. All right, so those are the 4 stages I'd like you to know. Try to really depict the age differences, the age gaps, the numbers, right? And try to understand certain examples for each stage. All right, so real quick, here are the terms for today. We got the cognitive view, Noam Chomsky, and the psychodynamic theory. So we reviewed this the other day a little bit with the psychoanalysis theory, very similar to, well, approach, and very similar to what we're going to go over, the iceberg method. I don't have to go over that too much more in detail. So today we're just going to focus mostly on the cognitive view and Noam Chomsky. And you'll see a video attached to the lesson of Noam Chomsky giving his example of language, right? And how this is something that we're maybe born with. Okay, the ability to communicate. So pause the video, write down these definitions. There you go. All right, so here is in the notes. You can find this to help you out a little bit more with these Piaget's theories, right? This developmental theories. All right, so the cognitive view. According to the cognitive view, our actions are a direct result of the way we process information from our environment. Cognitions are thoughts, expectations, perceptions, memories, and states of consciousness. So cognitive view is how we really react to certain scenarios, situations, stimulus, and how we build a knowledge off of that, whether it's through memory, whether it's through learning and understanding. Whenever you see cognitive, just think of it as learning. And this is really based off of this nurture idea, right? Where we experience the world around us, we build connections off of it through our memories, through our emotions, and we understand conceptually what is going on in the world, right? What is actually, what actually is unfolding and how we make sense of it through our own perceptions, through our own emotions, through our own memories and expectations. Right. So I'll talk about Noam Chomsky here soon, but the cognitive view, just really think of it as learning, right? It goes really hand in hand with that behavioralist approach, the behavioral perspective of psychology, how we learn, how we are impacted by certain stimulus and experiences. So with cognitive view, cognitive psychologists are a combination of the best structuralist, functionalist, and Gestalt traditions in ideas. So all those historical methods we mentioned already that we already talked about, they're combining these ideas and bring them together. So modern cognitive psychologists have also borrowed from theories of linguists and believe that our most basic language skills are pre-wired in our brains from birth. And that's where we get to Noam Chomsky. Noam Chomsky believes that all humans, okay, all people are born with this pre-wired language in our mind and our brains. Okay, where all babies, if you think about it, right, they make certain distinctive sounds that we can obviously generalize, and we can obviously make connections amongst all babies that what sounds they make, what type of, let's say, murmurs that they create and really bolt from their mouths. It's very similar, and I think we all can agree to that. Noam Chomsky believes that we have this language already pre-wired in our minds, which obviously is an amazing thing that humans have the ability to communicate with one another that many other organisms do not. Obviously, we know many animals do the same thing, but not to the advancement as what we do as humans, right? As people. We have this already pre-wired in our mind, which allows us to adapt over time and to survive in our environment compared to other organisms and other species, okay, where we can come up with fundamental systems to help base our life, our culture, our reality. And the only way we can do that is with communication, okay, how government structures are created. Right? He believes the way we are capable of living in the world and the society we live in today is because of really our language ability that's already pre-wired in our brains and in our minds, okay, which obviously is amazing. Okay, he's saying that this is already pre-wired. And his explanation whenever someone brings up, well, what about people in China? What about people in Japan, all across the world that speak different languages? Obviously, we don't speak the same language. Right? He's saying the innate ability to communicate with one another, that language device is already pre-wired in our mind. Okay, culture or fitting our environment shapes us to who we understand we are. So language, depending where you're located in the world, that culture is going to shape of what language you speak, what dialect you speak. Okay, maybe there's an accent, right? Who knows? But he's just saying that trait, that skill, that function of communication is just pre-wired in our mind. And it just really depends where you're at in the world of what dialect you speak, what language you speak, what accent you might have, if that makes sense. All right, so psychodynamic view, I already mentioned this before, and this is the idea where Freud, the id, right, the ID, whatever have you, the unconscious mind, deep, deep underwater. We try to hide it from everybody. This is our secrets, right? This is our pleasures. Okay, this is our innate desires that we try to hide from everybody. That's why it's deep, deep underwater. Okay, but that drives our consciousness. That drives our personality, our characteristics of who we really are. And only the closest people and relationships we have actually fit into this id, into this unconscious mind. Right. Another example here is the superego, right? I'm sorry, the id is what Freud describes as the devil on your shoulder. He's constantly trying to drive you to these beliefs, these ideas, these pleasures that you really, really want, but you suppress it because you know morally it's not correct to fit societal standards. We try to hide them. Right, the preconscious mind, a superego, right, is a moral good characteristics. That's the angel on your shoulder, trying to guide you in the right direction. Good moral characteristics. And that is the preconscious mind. We can retrieve that information really at the snap of a finger. We might not be thinking about it at the moment, but I know I gave the example of 2 plus 2. We all know it's 4. Even though we might not have been thinking of that equation, we can withdraw that information pretty quick. Why? Because it's already pre-wired in our minds. It's something that we practiced over and over and over again at a young age that we can just draw that information pretty quick to the conscious mind above the water for everybody to present and see. Again, good moral characteristics. Do we show it all the time? No. That's why it's somewhat out of the water and somewhat under the water. Finally, the ego. The ego in this representation, it shows a little bit under the water, but for the most part, everything's out of the water with the ego. And this is the mediator. This is you, what your personality is, what your character is like. You're trying to depress, you're trying to push away that id, the devil on your shoulder, the unconscious mind. At the same time, you have good moral characteristics, the angel on your shoulder. Okay, the preconscious mind right there as well, trying to guide you in the right direction. Do you always follow it? No. Sometimes we might come off as rude, right? Sometimes we don't find and fit that perfect mold. The ego is who we are. Okay, that balance between the id, the ego, or sorry, the superego, and that is our personality, our characteristic, our character traits that we present to everybody. And everybody knows who we really are, depending on friendships, depending on moral characteristics, right? You can pick anybody really in the classroom and say, yep, this person is a reliable friend. This person is a great person to be around, always energetic and always trying to have a good time, or vice versa. Not so much fun to be around, whatever have you. If that makes sense, guys. So the ego is the mediator, what you actually present to the people. All right, so Sigmund Freud, he is one of the biggest psychologists of what we know of today. And Sigmund Freud is very, very famous psychologist. And we'll talk a little bit about him more in the future with a lot of his theories, very, very sexual in nature. And he believes that this unconscious mind is constantly driving us. And there's a lot of different theories he believes about the partners we pick, our sexual partners, depending on obviously how it relates to our parents, which is kind of weird. I'll talk a little bit more about that, like I said, in the near future, and how that kind of shapes us of who we are. Many people discredit Freud because of this mentality, this idea of why we pick our relationship partners, and they just think he's too focused on sexual nature. Okay, how we react and our beliefs and our desires, our pleasures. He focuses more on that and what kind of personality and characteristics we have, rather than actually focus on improving our ability as people. Right? But again, many individuals think that he's on the right track. Can you prove it? Not so much, but there's many things that we can nod our head to and say, yeah, I understand where he's coming from. All right, guys, that's all I have for today. Again, I will talk about the career paths assignment tomorrow. Okay, and when that is due, okay, as I'm planning things out as we return for next Monday. Hopefully, right? Hopefully, this is crazy. We've been out for this long. So take care, guys. No homework for tonight. Have a good one.